Support for Radio Friends comes from Columbia Healthy Smiles, the dental office of husband and wife team Dr. Batson and Dr. Abe, offering comprehensive and customized care to patients of all ages. Learn more by calling 573-721-9039 or online at www.columbiahealthysmiles.com. And welcome to Radio Friends on Wednesday, September the 15th. John Howe is with us. And we're going to talk about his book, The Foolish Corner, and touch on some unfoolish topics.
Well, they're unfoolish but in some sense they reflect our own foolishness as human beings. So, today I'd like to talk about something called the Planning Fallacy.
The Planning Fallacy.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
And I think this is something that you and probably most of your viewers have experienced sometime in their lives. And that is that when you're planning some sort of project, and I use that word kind of generally, but project, we tend to underestimate how much time it takes to finish it.
I think that's true. Because no matter what you plan, it always takes a little bit longer, sometimes a lot longer than what you originally thought.
You have exactly described the planning fallacy.
Building a house. If you're planning to build a house and you've got all the plans there and the builder says, well, we'll have it all done by such and such. We're going to lay the foundation here. It never goes that way.
It never goes that way, even when we try to account for it, even when we're aware of this, which is interesting. So we might discuss why this persists and what we might do about it. But, just to go to the house building, it's an interesting, I looked up in the Census Bureau has some data on this, and it says the average house took about 7 months to build. Okay. That's the average. So roughly speaking, half go longer than that.
That's right.
Right? And this doesn't include, getting the architectural plans, the building permits, and so forth. And yet, I think a lot of people count on something well under a year to get a house built. Okay. So anyway.
And then there's the cost overrun.
Well, these run together. These go together, don't they? Yeah,
They do.
Yeah.
It never costs what you originally think it's going to cost. Be prepared for a lot more.
My personal experience was with a house renovation, not a house building. But the chap said 4 months, and I think it was 8. Yeah. And certainly there were cost overruns there.
Right. Yeah. I built our house 20 years ago or 21 years ago, and it started from the very beginning, the day they were going to break ground. we had a problem, an unforeseen problem. Had to put in a retaining wall before we could do anything else. And it was just one thing after another, and that cost kept escalating and escalating. And it was a real learning experience.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And cost overruns. One of the great examples is the Sydney Opera House in Sydney, Australia. Yeah. The original budget was $7 million. The final expense was $102 million.
That is quite a cost overrun.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Anyway.
Okay, so why does this happen? Why do things always take longer than what we originally? Well, I think because we want to be so positive about it?
I think you put your finger on a very important explanation there, and that is a lot of people have something you might call the optimism bias. Yeah. And optimism can be really helpful, for if you're an entrepreneur or going through a difficult part of your life or whatever. Optimism is really important, but over-optimism can be a bit of a problem. But this optimism means that people tend to shade things like the house, like, you don't want to wait a year for your house. You're like, no, so you can kind of be a little hopeful. Maybe we can get it done in 8 months, 7 months, like the Census Bureau says. So I think that the optimism is part of it. For negative, I was thinking about negative kinds of projects. I'm using that word kind of loosely. Like, I was thinking about cleaning my gutters. And if I think, well, it's going to take 2 hours, like I may never get around to it. I may get discouraged. But only an hour, I can do an hour. Right. So I might shade that way.
Right. So you're saying it's not going to take as long as you originally thought, so you can get started. Yeah. And then once you get into it, you realize, I was wrong. This is going to take long. This is going to take longer than 2 hours. But at least they started it.
No, that's right. And part of it is trying to deceive yourself in a way to get up on the roof in this case to clean out the gutters.
That's human nature.
It is. It is. So again, this optimism is generally a good thing, but we need to be aware that we may be underestimating these times. I think in organizations, like if we were to start some sort of new program here at the School of Journalism, right? And we'd say, we'd like this up and running next fall, for example. There may be pressures within the organization to get the project done quickly. So you might, even knowing that maybe a little optimistic, you might pare the estimated time down just to please the bosses or to get the proposal approved or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there are all kinds of forces at work here.
Okay, so as a whole, is this good or bad?
Well, I think as a whole, it's kind of net bad, but not really bad. I mean, part of it is that most of us are aware of this, and so when it happens, it's not a huge surprise. We were kind of hoping the house would take 7 months, but we're not surprised it's going to take 8 or 9 months.
Now, I got to tell you, there's a couple of times that I've started some do-it-yourself projects, and I was actually able to finish it in less time than I thought. So it does happen from time to time.
Well, that's good, but maybe if I don't know, but maybe if you weren't enjoying the work, you wanted it done quickly. And so you worked really hard at it, but congratulations on that. That is kind of the exception, not the rule, So, a couple of ideas about how to deal with this. So there's some really interesting research that says if you ask third parties to estimate completion times, they actually tend to overestimate them. So if I were to have said to you, Paul, how long do you think my house renovation is going to take? I'm open for 4 months. You might say, I think it'd be 10 or 11 months, right? Now that turns out it's about 8 months, right? But if I could take this, kind of third-party view and my own somewhat optimistic view and maybe average them,
then I
might get it,
You come
so
out close
I think it pays to go get a third party, just like, I don't know, buy them a beer, a cup of coffee, something, and say, what do you think how long this project's going to take? Again, recognizing that third parties tend to overestimate these times.
Now, is this in the book, The Foolish Corner?
This is in the book, yes. My book, The Foolish Corner, which is available on Amazon. And so one other suggestion, and that is that, and I think we've talked about this in a prior session, but you can do something called a pre-mortem. And I think we all know the phrase post-mortem.
Right.
But a pre-mortem is that we all sit down, maybe the builder, everybody involved, whatever, and we say, let's pretend that it's 7 months from now, and we're way behind. That is, the project is not failing, but is running long. And what went wrong? So we're doing this in the present, though.
Right.
And
so you can anticipate.
Perfect.
Anticipate
the problem.
Okay.
Exactly right.
John, we're out of time. It was an interesting conversation. If you want to sign up for John's newsletter, no strings attached to it, right?
No strings. It's free. You can unsubscribe if for some reason you don't like it. It comes out just once a month, too. It won't clog your inbox.
Okay. johnhowe.substack.com. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. John, thank you so much for coming by, and the book, The Foolish Corner. We appreciate it.
I appreciate being here.
Come back again, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Something you'd like to hear or see? I'd love to hear from you. That's pepperp, Missouri.edu. Have yourself a nice day.